From brokenness to breakthrough, this is Failure into Freedom. I'm Katie Holt Lehrman, a mom, wife, entrepreneur, and survivor, here to share my story of walking away from domestic violence, finding healing through faith, and learning to live free. Each week, we'll talk about resilience, hope, and the truth that no matter your past, you are never too far gone for freedom. This is real, this is raw, this is Failure into Freedom. Let's dive in. Hey friends, welcome back to Failure into Freedom. If you've been walking this journey with me, you know the last episode ended with what felt like freedom, but it wasn't the kind I expected. I thought getting that protective order extended was the finish line, but freedom isn't always fast. Sometimes it's found in the waiting. This was the season where everything slowed down, where the noise got quieter, but the loneliness got louder. Between Thanksgiving and Christmas, I was technically safe, but emotionally, I was unraveling. Trigger warning: this episode includes themes of trauma, family conflict, and high risk pregnancy. Please listen with care and take breaks if you need to. The Lord will fight for you. You need only to be still. Exodus 14:14. Even when my body was shutting down and my spirit was weary, he was still fighting for me, even in the hospital rooms, even when I couldn't. After everything happened, my family meant well, but their questions cut deeper than silence ever could. Was it really that bad? Why didn't you just tell us sooner, Katie? Maybe if you had done this differently. I didn't need judgment disguised as concern. I needed peace. So I buried myself in work. I stayed at the store and did what I knew how to do best: chase after my 1 year old, try to not puke my guts out while being pregnant with my second baby, and sell boots and run a team. I decided that for Christmas, I wasn't going to go travel or see any of my family because the closest family that lived to me was about 3.5 hours away. So I just decided while we had some days off that I would go, and being the store manager, I just needed to be there during the busiest time of the year for us. So Christmas morning came and it was just me, my son, and a few gifts I managed to buy. It was a couple of DVDs, a toy or two. I remember taking pictures that day. And even now, looking back, you can see the ache behind my smile, just trying to make something happen for my sweet baby boy. But that night, I got to pack up and take the baby to my boss's house for Christmas dinner. And for a moment, it felt like family. I didn't know then that that would be my last quote unquote normal moment for a long time. A few days later, me and my son drove to my grandmother's house for family Christmas. All of us were gathered there meeting. I knew that my mom was going to get proposed to by her boyfriend because me and him had been communicating a couple months leading up to this. While we were there and I was unpacking the car and we were sitting in the floor and letting the kids play, I started noticing I was having some consistent cramps that became more and more painful. I started breathing through them. I knew something was up, but I knew that I needed to get through dinner and gifts because that's when my mom's boyfriend was planning to propose. I just thought, well, maybe I'm just tired. So let me go lay down and put my feet up. Then I started timing the cramps, which were actually contractions. They were 10 minutes apart, then 5 minutes apart, then 2 minutes apart, then they disappear, then they come back. Try to get in the bath. Took some Tylenol, drank 2 bottles of water because that's the protocol. and nothing was stopping them. I didn't want to steal my mom's moment, so every time she came and told me that we needed to go to the hospital, I told her, let's just finish gifts first. I sat in the recliner, breathing through the pain while she opened the ring box. The second he said, will you marry me? And slipped the ring on her finger, I knew I couldn't wait any longer. Her then fiance came over and whispered, thank you for letting her have this. Now let's get you to the hospital. We were at Buchanan Dam. The closest hospital with a labor and delivery was in Marble Falls. Me and my mom, and a mixture of fear and faith holding me together, made that 45-minute drive. They immediately put me on monitors. Mind you, I was 23 weeks. They checked me to see if I was dilated. I was to a 3. They immediately started giving me pain medicine and starting me on a magnesium drip. If you don't know about the magnesium drip, let me just tell you, it feels like you were burning from the inside out. You vomit violently, you shake, you sweat, you're cold, but you are literally burning from the inside out because they have to hit you with the magnesium so fast to try to to try to relax all the muscles, more specifically your uterus. And on top of that, they gave me a pain medicine, Tramadol, which I did not know I was allergic to it. I was so allergic to it that I started hallucinating. I swore I saw my ex-husband in the room, ready to hurt me again. Ugh, just the thought of that makes me want to cry. But through all of that, through the fire in my veins and the fog in my mind, I remember one thing clearly. I never stopped crying out to God to save my baby. At one point, the doctor came in and said that they needed to set a catheter because the magnesium, basically, I was going to be on bed rest for the next 3 days at least to finish the magnesium protocol. They put the catheter in, and all of a sudden, I felt a gush. I called the nurse in, and she said, yep, that wasn't urine. That was definitely amniotic fluid. They made the phone call to St. David's in downtown Austin to hurry up and come pick me. And I was already going to be transported, but I went up a level. So they were trying to determine if I was going to be transported via ambulance or helicopter, how fast this baby was coming. Again, 23 weeks. And this was 8 years ago, 7 years ago, 7 years ago. And 7 years ago, the prognosis for a 23-week baby being born was pretty much death. That wasn't viable back then. So we were racing against the clock to try to figure out what was going on. A helicopter was supposed to come pick me up. So my mom, about 3 o'clock in the morning, took off in my car and drove from Marble Falls to St. David's. So she knew that she would meet me there. And then something happened where I didn't get on the helicopter. They sent an ambulance for me. And I'm very hazy with this part because I was so in and out of it. But I remember the ambulance coming and picking me up and me basically being out of it, but waking up in pain through contractions because they just wouldn't stop. When they rolled me in to St. David's in Austin, that's where the babies that small might have a chance. I remember doctors and nurses whispering around my room and talking to my mother. I remember hearing words like survival, NICU, bed rest indefinitely. Crazy thing happened though. The contractions slowly started to stop. Day by day, my body started doing the opposite of everything they expected. I got up to being 100% effaced and about 4 centimeters dilated when I first got to St. David's. I saw a different OBGYN every single day because it was an on-call doctor. And every single day they would compare notes to what the previous doctor said versus what their findings were. When I tell you every single day, it was different. The first day, my water was broken. It was 4 centimeters dilated and 100% effaced. The next day, contractions started slowing down. I was only having about 2 every hour. I was 3 centimeters dilated and only about 75% effaced. The next day, my contractions pretty much stopped. I would throw one every once in a while. That doctor would come in and check me. I was, I think, 25% effaced and about 2.5 centimeters dilated. The last day, um, I was at St. David's before they moved me from like a labor and delivery room into like the postpartum floor. They did a sonogram on me to see how much amniotic fluid I had, and the tech asked me 3 times, "Did your water break?" I said, "Yeah." And Marble Falls, they said my water broke. She goes, I don't think it did. Your water seems to be fully intact. I said, "No, that can't be right because there was amniotic fluid everywhere because I had a catheter in. There was no way that I peed myself. Like it had to be amniotic fluid." And they tested it and it popped positive for amniotic fluid. She goes, "This, that's not what this is showing me." And she measured my cervix and it was thickening. It was regenerating. It was closing. And my sweet baby's heartbeat was still beating stronger than ever. Like I said, doctor after doctor came in shaking their heads and saying, "We have never seen this before." That's when I realized God wasn't just saving my baby, He was reminding me that He still had both of us in the palm of His hands. And His hands were literally holding my daughter in my womb. I want to go back to maybe I think it was the time where I was still kind of in and out of a haze because I missed this part. I was in and out of a haze, and I remember the doctor telling my mom that I was probably going to need to be on bed rest for the rest of my pregnancy. And my mom said she has a toddler, she lives by herself, she's a single mom. Like, we don't know how we're going to make that work. And they said, "Yeah, she probably needs to move in with you, or you need to move in with her." And she worked remote. She could have possibly moved to Bryan College Station to be with me in the house where my son knew what I knew, the life that I was living. And I still kind of struggle with this. But I got told that I was moving to San Angelo, Texas, and I was moving in with my parents. And everything that I had built up for 5+ years was basically me becoming non existent. I was going to be dependent on my parents. And I remember my mom making a phone call to my boss. And I just remember being strapped in the bed, legitimately strapped down in the bed. The only thing they didn't have on me was handcuffs. That's what it felt like. And I was in and out of consciousness. And she made a phone call to Nancy. And I remember the way that she talked was just so, it was out of not jealousy. It was out of like, haha, I won. I get my daughter. Because she was very jealous of me and my and Nancy's relationship. She would never say that, but I know my mom and I knew and I still know that that's how she feels about that relationship. Um And if I could have came out of that bed and whooped her, I probably would have. The way that she talked to Nancy and told Nancy, like, you're gonna have to figure it out. Katie's not coming back. I'm taking Neil. Um, I'm gonna come pack her up and I'm moving her to San Angelo with me. And don't get me wrong, I am grateful that I did move to San Angelo. If you know me in real life, you know that I had to move here in order to find my forever family and everything else. But in the moment, I was ready to whoop her ass. And it could have been handled so much better than Katie's not coming back. You need to figure it out. It was just, there was no grace extended in it. It was very, ha ha, I won. Anywho, I just want to say that so you can start piecing together the picture of more stories that are to come. After about a week and a half in the hospital, I was released on strict bed rest, even though my cervix had regenerated, water had replenished. The doctors were still pretty leery because they'd never seen it before. My grandmother actually came to pick me up from the hospital because my mom had my toddler at the urgent care. Also, this was the first time me and my toddler had ever been separated overnight from each other. And it was a week and a half. Like, talk about driving him and me bonkers. And poor baby was sick. He was so sick. He had bronchitis and the flu, and I was in the hospital and just coming home. So, anyways, my grandmother and my mom divide and conquered. My grandmother and my granddad came and picked me up from the hospital and drove me back to their house, which was about a hour and a half drive, I think. And my mom was taking care of my son and getting him his medicine. From there, we got in my car and we drove back to Bryan College Station so I could wrap some loose ends up because I was told that she decided I was moving in with her and my soon to be stepdad in San Angelo. So we went there, and that was the worst, like, few days in my life. I feel like it still just makes me so sad. I was there, we packed up what we needed. Um, and I went to the store and sat down and just worked the girls through how to basically run the store because I was the one that took care of that store. That was me. The only thing I didn't do is payroll and sales tax, but I did everything else. So, um, yeah, so I had to show them the ins and outs and show Nancy the ins and outs, even though it was her business. We had our own little system going there. And then we took off to San Angelo. And I didn't want to go. I had built a life, my own home, my own job, my independence. But now I was driven back to living with my parents. And my son was treated as if he was, or I was being treated as if my son was my sibling, not my son. I remember standing outside my mom and stepdad's house, playing with my son, staring at the West Texas horizon and just sobbing. How did I end up here? Why am I back to basically being a child again? It felt like the wilderness. But what I didn't know then was that God does his best work in the wilderness. Same valley I wanted to escape from was the one that would bring me my current husband, my forever friends, two more sweet babies, my purpose, and my calling. The wilderness wasn't the end, it was the waiting room for the promise. In this season, I learned that deliverance doesn't always look like doors flying open. Sometimes deliverance looks like God sitting beside you in the hospital saying, "Be still. I've got this." He didn't just heal my body, he began healing my heart. He took me from a woman fighting to prove her strength to a woman learning to trust his sovereignty. Deuteronomy 8:2. Remember how the Lord your God led you all the way into the wilderness. He wasn't just leading me through a hospital stay, He was leading me into restoration. Isaiah 43:2. When you pass through waters, I will be with you. Even when my water broke, He proved it wasn't the end and restored and regenerated my womb to keep my daughter safe. Psalms 27:13. I remain confident of this. I will see the goodness of the Lord in the land of the living. And I did. Because that baby survived, and so did I. Okay, going into our journal prompts. If you've been journaling or doing some thought provoking questions with me in this journey, here are 5 questions for you to think about or journal. Have you ever confused God's delay for His denial? What wilderness am I currently in? And what might God be trying to teach me there? How have I seen God hold me together when everything around me was falling apart? Who or what do I need to forgive so I can move forward in peace? That's a good one. And what miracle in my story still reminds me that God was closer than I realized? Here's a sneaky peek for episode 7. When the dust settled, I thought everything had fallen apart, but God was actually planting something brand new. Next time, I'll share how that wilderness season birthed something unexpected. My very first business. The wildest part, the seed money that had been set aside years earlier, long before I even knew I needed it. God was funding my future before I even saw the need. Thank you so much for joining me. Thank you so much for joining me. And I just want to say, I truly enjoy getting all the messages from people that I do know, people that I don't know. This podcast actually hit top, I think 130 and personal journal podcasts in the United States for, I think, 4 weeks running. And that couldn't be done without y'all. I'm not doing this to get famous. I'm not doing this to make money. I'm literally doing this a lot of the times. Like right now, I'm sitting in my bed with a baby asleep beside me and a litter of puppies beside me. And I'm using my new microphone that my husband bought me because he truly believes in me sharing my story. Sometimes it's in the car while I'm driving. It's in my daughter's room when I have a little break on Tuesdays or Thursdays while all kids are at school and Mother's Day out. I mean, I just sit down and talk and pray that my story might save or help those walking through any type of situation where they feel unloved, forgotten, alone, abused, mistreated, whether it's from a significant other, a family member, friends. So thank you for sharing. Thank you for meeting me here. It means the world to me. And it shows me that in those deep and awful moments that I didn't see the light. There was a reason for it. And the reason is where we are today. So thank you. This is Failure into Freedom. I'm Katie. God is real and God is big, and God's holding you in the palm of his hand. Have a great week. Bye bye.